for meaningful service, impact, and deep joy. So much innovation genuinely contributes to human flourishing, and there are ways to benefit from money's liquidity, exchange, and accounting value without granting it a supreme place. So we have Matt Hangen, Jeremie Kubicek, and Elizabeth Hutt Pollard. And Brian is moderating.
We ready?
Take it away.
All right. Well, my word, we have, as Congress said earlier, this is way too short a time for you guys to really get to know these guys. You'll have a moment afterwards for your breakout to really dive deeper. But as I was thinking about it, I'm thinking it would be hard pressed to get three people that are more innovative in what they do, and then these three people in one panel. So their intentionality innovation is incredible, and you've got to hear their stories. We just don't have time for all that today. So you're going to learn a little bit about them, and we'll dive deeper later. But so I'm just going to ask them some questions. We have 20 minutes, and so we'll get to maybe a couple questions. But seriously, we can't get started without you giving just a 30-second intro each, and tell us a little bit about what you're involved in. Jeremie, you've already done that, so we're going to jump over you, and we'll let Elizabeth do that.
I've spent the majority of my career in biotechnology, really driving genomics as a technology that has changed the way we think about healthcare, from oncology to infectious disease and so on. I've worked across the globe, and through that experience, found my way to Oklahoma City because God asked us to move here, and as a result found myself at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic, standing up testing for the state of Oklahoma, and then serving the governor as Cabinet Secretary of Science and Innovation. I have been in both large public companies and startup. I've taken a company from nothing to exit around complex technology, mainly by building brands. I've been nonprofit and for-profit and government and higher ed.
Awesome.
That's all I got.
30 seconds. All right. We are, so we're a nonprofit that wholly owns a for-profit in Africa that operates in 4 countries, and we pipe water to rural homes that are there. And we use donations as seed capital to get core infrastructure in place, and then we use debt financing out of foundations primarily with concessionary interest rates to connect more homes off that donated capital. So we're blending the 2 capital streams together, and we'll be able to use investment for all of it, hopefully within the next 7 years.
The Water For. So I'm just going to play right off of that, Matt.
Yes.
And I want you to explain a little bit about how you brought this really a disruptive innovation to an old model, and how you worked through that transition.
And so Clayton Christensen actually coins this term disruptive innovation, and it's like there's this lower end of the market that's just sort of ignored because it's like there's no value, there's no margin there. And so when you look at rural Africa, you think these people are earning $1 to $2 a day. We don't need to pay attention to that market as a business. But in Africa, there'll be 1 billion people that live in those rural communities in the next 25 years, all of which won't have water at their homes. And the thing that we saw is people were looking at water as like a health problem for individuals, and so they needed to come in and solve a health issue for individuals. What we saw was that it was actually a market issue for people. Every woman and girl, so half the population, was using 3 hours a day to go walk to get water and bring it back to their house, which is burning an enormous amount of calories, keeping girls from going to school, and then keeping them from being able to go to the market, to the field, X, Y, and Z. It's like 70,000 hours of every female's life is spent hauling water. So what's the value of that you could give back to a business? It's a lot more expensive to pipe water to people's homes and keep it running than it is to do like a central community water station where you do a hand pump or a stand tap and then walk away. So there has to be a business model behind it. And so the question was, how much value is that 3 hours a day for people? And could we actually engineer a technology to get it to their homes, treat the water, keep it running for less than the value? And so we started out to design an investable business model that piped water to homes, charged 3 cents a day, and then actually have enough margin off that 3 cents to be able to take on debt, pay the debt back, and then have growth capital to reinvest back into the business. So it was like, a market that no one looked at for financial reasons, as a business model opportunity. But for us, it was, well, it's half the planet. all of whom are in low-income nations. But if you have high volumes and low margins, you can still make a business model work. And so we're raising $160 million in debt capital right now. We've got 9 of it secured, and that's being serviced through the sales of people in rural Africa that we're totally overlooked for this level and quality of water.
It's an incredible disruptive model, guys. Taking a purely donor-based, let's help drill water wells, to how do we create and really solve a problem and bring value. And so it's such a cool model, but disruptive thinking and taking something and figuring out how to really bring value to it and changing the way people look at it. So it's so cool. Elizabeth, talk to us about, so you've been involved in a lot of disruptive technology. You've been involved in helping a lot of disruptive technologies get started. Talk to us a little bit about how you integrate with these entrepreneurs their disruptive ideas with their core values.
Sure. So, innovation takes a lot of focus and effort, and sometimes we get so focused on that advancement in innovation, whether it's innovating a brand, a communication message, whether it's a technology that you're launching, or whether it's thinking about offering professional services in a new way. I think that pretty much hits all of you guys. That's innovation. And in the midst of doing that kind of innovation, we sometimes lose sight of who's on the throne. Jesus is on the throne. And from a redemptive frame, we have to go back to our value set and say, am I doing this because I feel God calling me to do it, or my spiritual self is aligned with the agenda of what this business is? And I think that's the easiest thing to get sidetracked, because we get caught up in the pressure of, are we meeting the expectations of our customers? Are we meeting the expectations of our investors? Are we meeting the expectations of our families? And I've heard this already in the room today. And the reality is, you have to think about, it's your spiritual self, it's your spouse, it's your children, it's your business. And usually when something's out of whack, it's because one of those first 3 things is out of whack. And so it's continually pulling ourselves back and out of that. And I think the way that I've been successful doing that is surrounding myself with great mentors, thought leaders that I can call, I can text and say, man, I'm having a hard time. And sharing vulnerability and authenticity in that moment, that I don't have it all together, and so I actually need help and support. And what does that look like? And what am I not seeing? What blind spot is happening? And what do I need to hear? And taking that feedback with open hands.
Hey, Jeremie, so you spend all the time with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of big thinkers, a lot of big ideas. What are you telling them today as to how to look at one of the biggest disruptive innovations right now of our generation is AI? How are you talking to entrepreneurs about AI?
So I think we're in our last year. I think by 2026, there will be a smattering. By 2027, half of the teams will have an agent with you. So if you have a team of people, you'll have 3, 4, 5, however many agents that you're pulling from using. I don't mean agents, I mean chatbots that are going to be given duties, and they'll be named something. Titan, Orion, whatever that looks like. And those names, then they'll be aggregating certain detail. I'm already working, we work with Google in one project, and they blew me away at what they're doing with agents inside their teams and how they're using it. And they're on the cutting edge because that's what they do, right? So what's happening is just the being ready to look at it as either a threat or leverage point. How do I leverage it? But it will be disruptive. We have a company that we started in the last 2 years, year and a half. And it's called Workplace. It's workplace.io. And we think we're going to take all surveys away. You won't need surveys, because we're basically using AI to get real-time culture analysis. It basically, you can put Slack or Teams or Gmail or anything on, and as soon as you turn it on, it analyzes the mood of the entire organization real-time, daily. So it would be daily. It would tell you how much burnout do you have, how much psychological safety do you have, how much in pains and gains and issue, and it basically analyzes. So that's disruptive, but it analyzes real-time culture, because most surveys aren't real, because people take them funny. They're not honest, and by the time you get them back, it's like 3 months later, and so you never knew what happened. This is actually real time. My point is that level of it's innovation, but it will be so disruptive to the way that you lead. And tomorrow I'm going to be walking you guys through the voice-driven leader, and I'll explain that a little bit. But you're taking people on a journey. Well, what happens when they're artificial, and how does that play out to your dynamic and people relating to that? It's going to be really odd and really crazy, and it will surprise us how fast it will be utilized. Some of us probably use AI all the time already, but we're not even close to what it will be, especially in the team dynamic. And that function, assigning an agent to do something and it takes 2 seconds versus a week from now coming back with it, it's going to change the productivity landscape, efficiency, communication, align, all that stuff. It will change.
Yeah. Matt, talk to us about big disruptive innovative ideas. How do you lead through that without losing your team? How do you bring your team along with disruptive ideas?
I don't know.
Okay, anybody.
I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I think, it's like I'm steering a ship at night, more times than not, where it's like in the fog. And so I have a sense of where land is, but, it's so hard to communicate. Why is this important? Why is this orientation so key? And, you can feel the importance of it, but it takes a long time to be able to articulate why. And, so I'd say, you got to keep minding within yourself to figure out, why is this so important that it be done this way, or that this be the, product or service? Why does it need to be specifically like this? And you just have to keep digging for that why and keep trying it. And you'll wear some of your team out because that message will change as you keep trying to get clarity and hone in on it. But it's like it really does feel like you're sailing a ship at night in the fog, and as dawn begins to rise, you can sort of see landfall, and but it takes a long time. And when we started this, it was like, you're charging poor people for water. Well, that's wrong, and you're trying to take on debt. You're a nonprofit. That's wrong. You're starting businesses. You're a nonprofit. That's wrong. It was like, and I couldn't tell you why it was right, but I knew it was right. And here we are. 8 years later, and now 8 years later, I can sit down and say why it's right. But it took, 5 or 6 to get to that point, and we had a ton of turnover in that 5 to 6 years. Yeah.
But as a leader, you knew you had to stay the course.
I need a drink. Yeah, you got to I think that's, you got to you have to be obsessive over what you're doing for that reason, because you got to stay the course, And you got to have good mentors, and you got to have people to check your sanity, because you might, you are a little crazy if you're a founder, and so you got to make sure you don't get a lot crazy. You just got to stay a little crazy.
Speak for yourself.
You need people around you that can kind of help steady you, hold your hands up when they get tired, because it's an arduous job.
Elizabeth, talk to us about how you use partnership to help with
So
innovation.
I think it is different amongst the different kinds of businesses you all have in the room, how you use partners. For technology, it's always great to partner with a potential customer to help you do final development of technology to get it to market, because then you have an early adopter and someone who's bought in, and making sure that customer is a large one's important. On a branding side, it's more about partnering to understand the market you're serving and the messaging that's going to resonate the most with it, and ensuring that you've got the relationships in place to make sure you've heard that voice of the customer and are putting that into action. I think an example for me is I was with a company that was focused on infection control. And this company had built an industrial solution, but we knew that we could get more adoption if we moved to a consumer product play. I wasn't a consumer product person at the time, and I'm like, well, I know how to do it from a B2B perspective, but I don't know how to do a B2C perspective. So what did I do? I called friends and I said, who do you know at Procter & Gamble? They have the highest cleaning brands in the world. They understand industrial and consumer product, and how can I surround myself with some advisors? I ended up hiring a CEO into the company to lead who was from Procter & Gamble at the end of the day, because they could pivot the company where it needed to go and lead accordingly. So that's a great example of, as a founder, we need to think about how do we get the innovation to market in the way that's going to make the most sense. Are we the right person to scale that or not? And how do we develop partnerships to keep us moving it in that right direction based upon the needs of the customer? Because technology does not sell itself. Innovation does not sell itself. The market has to be there and want the technology or the innovation, and we need to make sure we understand that.
All right, I've got one more question. Jeremie, as you work with leaders that have big ideas and you're coaching them, how do you help them get clarity on what they should pursue?
All right, so as you guys think, I'll act like you are that leader. Like if you tell me what you're trying to do, I just like to ask questions, right? And so what do you want more of? If I asked you that question, you kind of gave it in your pitches. What do you want more of? And if we get clarity on what, and then we go naturally, well, why? And I just use fundamental questions. Just really simple. What do you want? Why do you want it? Who are you going to take with you? How are you planning to get it done? When are you going to do it? How much is it going to cost? And by asking those fundamentals over and over again, and then you can go back through and ask them, ultimately they get to a point, because it's all about motive and incentive. Like, what's your motive and what's the incentive? And so is your motive for good, or is your motive for yourself? And if it's for good, like, all right, well, what's the incentive? And then how do you get other people to play with you? And so just using logic and wisdom and basic questions is what I tend to do. And then I have this ace up my sleeve called the Holy Spirit. And I partner with the Holy Spirit before a meeting. And any meeting I go into, I've been coaching interesting people over the years. Governor, Brent Venables, different Joe Castiglione, other people. But I'm always asking, like the Holy Spirit, what do you have for them? And is there any healing, anything that needs to get taken out, anything that needs to get called up? And while I'm asking these questions, I'm also looking on the personal level. And then he usually shows me, it's the weirdest thing, it's like healing, casting out, raising up. And it's usually at that level with me. And it kind of reveals itself. I'm like, is that? No. Is it that? Oh, it's that. Christian, we had this. We did that sitting with Christian and Citizen, and that happened. And I had a little thing that was like, for him. And so by doing that, then I'm a conduit with the Holy Spirit on that area. So that touches the personal soul side while working on their business structure side. It's kind of both.
I would play off that and say, you can do that yourself too, by asking yourself these questions. This was a tool that was very powerful to me years ago in writing my own personal kind of vision document about what I was pursuing, and just started asking myself questions and answering those questions on paper, and created over time a document that gave me a real clear vision. So I encourage you in that. And it still blows me away, Jeremie, that the Holy Spirit would send you into the center of the athletic department at the University of Oklahoma, being an Aggie that you are. So anyway, okay, I think we're out of time, and LaTonya's going to tell us next steps.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Yep.